Hi everybody, it's Steve Bloom with americascomedy.com, and we are at Sacramento Comedy Spot with the Earth's premier science comedian, Brian Malow.
Yes, self-proclaimed.
Self-proclaimed. What did I say? Self-denounced?
No, you just said Earth's premiere, which I just, you know, the title was not bestowed upon me by anyone but myself, you know.
I'll bestow it on you.
Thanks. I'll accept the honor.
Americascomedy.com has just bestowed that title to you.
Thank you.
Even though you've been using it for years.
It's an honor to be here.
Wonderful. So most people don't know we go back quite a ways, probably 15 years when you were not a science comic. You were, matter of fact, you did a gig for me. You were a Jewish comic at a Christmas party for an automobile dealer in Turlock, California. If you say so.
No, I actually do have a vague memory of that, and yeah, I never defined myself as a Jewish comic. I am Jewish and a comic, but I never defined myself as that, although I've done a number of Jewish comedy shows. But yeah, but you then know, as I was just telling someone, that even back then, I had, the science thread was running through my stuff. It just hadn't quite crystallized yet, as I didn't know to call it that and brand it that way. But I was already doing it to a great extent.
Well, you've always been a geek, if I recall from our conversations.
And I'm not offended by that.
Oh, no, I claim it.
I hold my head up proudly, yes.
So tell me a little bit about the early years, Brian Malow, how you got into comedy and science and things like that.
Yeah, well, I got into science much earlier. So from the youngest age, I was into science fiction and science. And I read, the science fiction I liked was the hard science fiction, where the science accuracy is important, scientific, the validity of the science. I went to the University of Texas in Austin, and sometime after college, there was a Funniest Person in Austin contest, and I had developed an interest in stand-up, but I had no previous stage experience at all. Wow. But at a certain point, I had decided I wanted to try it, and this contest was my inspiration, and I did 2 open mics before the contest started, and then I did the contest, and I did pretty well. I went to from the prelims, I went to the finals. And then I was like, this is easy. But then in the finals, I choked. I learned that lesson immediately, because my 3rd time on stage, I slayed. And I was like, who is this guy that, I know what it must be like, because there was a comedy scene there, and most of the people in the competition knew each other. And then there's these newcomers like me, and I made it to the finals. But in the finals, a couple weeks later, I tried to just recreate I tried to just say the same jokes, and it just didn't come out as funny. And but that was enough of a taste to know I wanted to keep doing it. So I started in Austin, Texas, is the short answer.
I read somewhere your parents wanted you to be going to medicine?
I'm Jewish. So yes, doctor, lawyer, accountant, whatever. My dad was an accountant, so. I wanted to be a rock star at that time. So I was out for a year, and then I went to graduate school in radio, TV, and film.
So I understand that you are a contributor for Time Magazine.
Yeah, I'm a freelancer. I make science videos mostly for Time Magazine's website, and that's been a lot of fun. I want to do a lot more of it. So, and because of it, I got to interview They Might Be Giants. I'm fans of theirs. They have a science album out for kids, and most recently, I got to interview Brian May, guitar god from Queen. Oh my. And not about his music, and not about the fact that he just got his PhD in astrophysics about 2 years ago, but he has a book out that has to do with stereoscopy, 3D images, and it's a certain collection from the 1850s.
I read somewhere that you were able to tell jokes to Stephen Hawking.
I did get to talk to him for a few minutes and tell him a joke or two that only he would get, and then and again, I have a couple pictures. I mean, talk about a captive audience. It's not like, there's so yes, I got to, and he didn't get away. So did he enjoy it? I don't know.
So you have a comedian telling a joke to someone who can't laugh.
Yeah, that's actually, I've almost said that exact same thing, because one time years ago, he showed up at a San Francisco comedy club, Cobb's Comedy Club, and I was so jealous of the comedians who were on the bill. If I remember correctly, Brian Regan was the headliner.
Oh, good.
Very funny. But the other guys, I don't think were as interesting. And I just know that if I had been on that bill, that I would have played to the one man in the audience that couldn't laugh out loud, you know? And I would have done that because of, why wouldn't it? There's these other people, I'll get you some other time. Stephen Hawking.
Another little tidbit that a lot of people don't know is that you had a routine that was beamed to the shuttle orbiting the Earth. Is that correct?
Yeah, no, well, not beamed, but you know, a lot of times to promote our shows, we do morning radio. And in Houston, I did such a radio show, and the DJ was a woman who was engaged to and later married a NASA test pilot on track to become an astronaut, and she would make tapes for them to take on board. They're allowed to bring there's a certain amount of stuff that they're allowed to bring up there. So she asked if I had anything, and I had an old routine, and actually at the time it was a brand new routine about Neil Armstrong being the first man on the moon. And I recorded it, and she contacted me a few months later to tell me the mission number that it was taken aboard.
Oh, fantastic.
So I have been heard just a little off, it's only about 100 miles away, so it's only as far as like Sacramento to San Francisco, but it's straight up, so a little harder to get to.
Fantastic. Now you've been in space in one way or the other.
Next, it needs to be me, the physical body, performing a zero gravity performance.
Brian, as a science comic, is it more or less difficult to perform at a comedy club versus a science convention?
Well, I don't find either one more challenging because, you know, I have a lot of experience in comedy clubs. And I started in tough rooms, which there's a thing that that those of us that did, we always think back on, there was a little room that some of us developed in Austin called the Velveeta Room that could be a very challenging room. And the great thing about that is it toughens you up. When you, early in your career, any comics, I would recommend doing tough rooms, because then what happens is you get over a lot of fears, and anytime I'm at a comedy club, I'm not nervous at all, because comedy clubs are easy compared to some of the gigs I had to do earlier in my career. So I've done tough rooms, so anything resembling a comedy club is easy.
So do you have the equivalent of a scientific dick joke?
Yes, of course we call it a penis joke, but I do. You know, most of my act is pretty clean, but I do. There's a couple, yeah, sure. But my girlfriend is a beautiful, tall geek. And she also, she's a voracious reader. She loves science fiction and science. And we also have kind of similar tastes in music, and not completely overlapping, but if you look at a Venn diagram, there's a lot of overlap there. We like a lot of the same sort of art, and we're interested in photography. We crossed paths, and nice. And it all worked out. And as I say, I've never been married, but I'm currently in a relationship I believe will end in marriage. Women have passed through my life like exotic particles through a cloud chamber, leaving only vapor trails for me to study for clues to their nature.
Oh my God.
Where can people get more information about you and what you're doing?
ScienceComedian.com. And in fact, if you Google Science Comedian or on any various things, Twitter, I'm Science Comedian. On YouTube, I'm Science Comedian. On Facebook, I have my own page, and I have a Science Comedian Brian Malow fan page that eventually I'm going to develop. But ScienceComedian.com, that's the main
place.
That'll lead you to the others.
Fantastic. Great seeing you again.